What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for tuning back in. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about all of the best Week 5 matchups, going all the way from Notre Dame at Arkansas, LSU at Ole Miss at the Grove, to Oregon at Penn State, Happy Valley, Whiteout, College Game Day, and of course, we're going to also be talking about Alabama at Georgia. Starting off, let's talk about, in my opinion, the best game at the 11 a.m. slate, and that is, without a doubt, Notre Dame headed down to Fayetteville playing Arkansas. Shockingly, for these two big programs, this is the first ever meeting between the two. Let's just see if we get any defense. If I had a surefire bet of the week, it is the over in this football game. It's at 64.5 right now. Yeah, that's a high point total, but I mean, if you've watched these two teams, you know. Speaking of the no defense, Notre Dame secondary has been really bad this year. You watch them against Texas A&M. A&M had so many deep and long plays. They had 80-yard touchdowns. They had 40-yard touchdowns. They had deep balls going to jump ball receivers. They couldn't stop it. They've given up 27 points in every single game this season at a minimum. 27 to Miami. They gave up 40-something to A&M. And they gave up 30 to Purdue, the same Purdue team that won one game last year. Notre Dame fans should be worried about this defense because it's not good right now. And they're playing against Arkansas, who, in my opinion, is a top 5 offense in the entire country, and all the metrics show it. Arkansas's offense is extremely good and very potent. The only reason they're 2-2 is because their defense sucks, and they have a lot of self-inflicted wounds that cost them themselves games. 1-3 for Notre Dame, you're not a playoff team. That's just, hate to break it to you, at 1-3, you're not making the playoffs. 1-3 at Notre Dame is not going to be a playoff team. You have 1-3, you have 2 SEC losses and 1 ACC loss. That's all your power 4 opponents you play this season, you lost. You're not going to make the playoffs at 9-3. 10-2, there's a potential, but it's still risky. If you win out from now, it's still hard to make it in. But if you lose, it's over. This is a must-win for Notre Dame, as you're coming off a national championship appearance. You can't follow it up with a completely missed playoffs. Turning to Arkansas, Notre Dame's going to make you pay. Taylor Green has had some very, very bad turnovers. He had that very costly end zone turnover interception to Memphis, which ultimately was a reason they lost the football game. But also, back-to-back weeks, you have the ball in the opponent's red zone inside the 20, going to score to win the football game, and you fumble. If you had self-inflicted wounds like that, you will not win games in tough conferences like the SEC, and especially versus games against talented teams like Notre Dame. Also, the defense has to show up just a little bit. Your offense is going to be able to hang points on them, for sure. If that defense can show up in just the slightest amount, the smallest amount of defense, and get you, let's say, 2 stops this full game, and like 2 stops where you go score the previous drive or you go score the following drive, I think you win this football game. The question is, if the offense does something, can the defense respond and work in cohesion with what the offense did? They haven't yet this year. I think if they do, they can win. Another thing for Arkansas, start strong you have all year. You've started strong every game this year. You just haven't finished. If you can just start strong, build up a lead, and then not blow the lead and actually finish the game, you are a good football team. No one thinks you're a bad football team. You just keep finding ways to lose. You find a new way to lose every week, and it's embarrassing. If you lose this game, I think Sam Pittman gets canned within the next week or two. If you win, you're just delaying the inevitable, though. Sam Pittman has to go. He's not the answer. I don't care if you win this game and you go 9-3 this year. He's not the answer. You have to fire him. You have to find someone new. Winning this game, it's a weird dilemma for Arkansas fans. You lose, hopefully you get some new regime. Sam Pittman's out the door. You win, cool, you ride your high horse. But then what? You just wait to fire him for another year so his buyout gets smaller? I don't get it. It's a lose-lose situation in Arkansas. Next up, I want to talk about LSU headed down to the Grove to play Ole Miss at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. This game is going to be fun. We had all the theatrics leading up to it so far. Lane Kiffin's daughter is dating Whit Weeks, the best defensive player on LSU. And then Lane Kiffin saying take the over, which is just classic Lane Kiffin talk. For LSU, do we finally get to see how good this offense truly is? Against the Clemson team, who we thought was going to be really good, has looked horrible. So was that a real true test? And they beat up on a Florida team who, quite frankly, kind of sucks. I mean, they threw for 63 yards last week. It wasn't It really was never a competitive football game. The only reason it was competitive is because Florida's defense is that good. So that's the first good defense you played, and they stunned you. And against Clemson, who hasn't looked good at all this year, they held you to 17 points. So the real question is, how good is this offense actually this year? We know the defense is legit, okay? We know that for sure. The defense is legit. But how good is this offense? We don't know. We're going to find out, though, this week against the Ole Miss team that doesn't have a great defense, but it's good enough to test you and really see what you're made of. I think that we come out here and Garrett Nussmeier is going to be on time. Ole Miss, one of their big things is they allow way too many rushing yards. 170 rushing yards or more in all three of their games is not acceptable. Last week they allowed over 250 rushing yards. Unacceptable. All LSU really has to do in this football game is go down there, run the ball, stay balanced, open up the play-action pass, and I think they win this football game. If they can run the ground and get Cam Durham over 125 rushing yards, I think this game is over within the first half of football because Ole Miss can't respond to that if they're allowing that much offensive production. On the other side, what did they make Chambliss do? Chambliss is this superhero, really awesome story coming from D2 last year. Let's see what he's made of, though. Let's see what this kid really is. Is he that guy? Let's see what LSU makes him do. Do they make him throw the football? Do they want him to run the football? I'm interested to see how Blake Baker combats this, and I trust Blake Baker to combat it in the right way. Ole Miss, Chambliss has to be able to use his arm. We've seen him do it with his legs. We think he can do it with his arm, but he only showed us against the Arkansas defense who, quite frankly, they may be a bottom 10 defense in the entire country this year. That's how bad they are. Can Chambliss utilize his arm against a very, very, very good defense, possibly a top 5 defense in the entire country this year? So it's very different for Chambliss. But as of now, he's given me no reason to discredit him and think that he can't do it. So I'm going to trust in Chambliss. Really, I think it comes down to, is Garrett Nussmeier going to make one of those costly, boneheaded, scratch-my-head type of plays? He does this. He's a gunslinger. He's going to throw the football. He's going to try to fit into tight windows. That's the type of quarterback he is. Is he going to do that in the positions that are very costly to his football team and cause them to lose the game? I think Ole Miss also has the home field advantage. Obviously, they're at home. But it's going to be a rowdy bunch of folks, all right? It's a 3:30 game, not no 11 a.m. game. Ole Miss, we know how they get down in the Grove. They get rowdy. They get fun. I think Lane Kiffin maybe has a little extra edge on his shoulder because his daughter's dating their defensive player. Anyways, I think Ole Miss, with the 1.5 point favorites, I do think they pull off the upset. I think the key thing to the upset is we haven't seen how good this LSU offense is. I think we're going to be surprised to see how this Ole Miss defense comes out and surprises LSU. I think LSU gets held to a little less points than you would expect, and I think that's the reason Ole Miss wins this football game. I'm going to take Ole Miss at a 31-23 football game. Those games we just talked about right there, that was just the appetizer. This is we're like a fat kid on Christmas today. We're just feasting all day with what slate we have this Saturday. At 6:30 slates and at nighttime slates, we get Bama at Georgia, followed up at the same time with Oregon at Penn State. Talk about two of the best games and two games that could be game of the year potential at the end of the season. I'm going to start with, Bama at Georgia. This game, last year, undoubtedly game of the year. We're talking about that game last year may have been a top 10 game. That's what we're talking about. Last 10 years, that was maybe the best game with all the show we got. This year, it could be the same. I think that we're going to start seeing a little more offensive-heavy game between these two teams rather than the older-style defensive games. I think last year was set the precedent for that. This year, some of my big takeaways are Bama has to control the O-line. Their O-line came into the season supposed to be a very good unit, top unit in the entire country. They've looked bad so far. Against Florida State, they looked really bad. They couldn't control the offensive line, and it got Ty Simpson into some very tricky situations where then he began to untrust the O-line. He would escape pockets that really were good pockets. I think another thing is, how does Ty Simpson react? We saw him in his first true road test game against Florida State, and I thought he played actually pretty good for how bad the rest of his team played. I thought he played fine. Now we're going into another big stadium, Sanford Stadium in Georgia. The Bulldogs are going to be there. They're going to show out. This is a tougher environment than Florida State is, in my opinion. Can he come out and prove that he's that quarterback that he was recruited to be? This is also Alabama's chance to write the season. Yeah, they started off shaky. They were 0-1. They lost to Florida State. They didn't think they should have. But Florida State's clearly proven they're a good football team. If Bama can win this football game, they're 3-1 with a loss to a top 5 opponent in the country. That resume isn't all that bad. They have a chance to be very good this season still. They have to sustain a game plan for 4 quarters. We watched them last year against Georgia. They were up 28-0, and they ended up winning in the end, but they blew it and almost lost that football game. Against Georgia and against Kirby Smart, we watched Kirby Smart time after time after time start off slow, go to halftime, make the adjustments, come back and win. He was down 21-7 2 weeks ago against Tennessee, and he came back and won that football game. Kirby Smart is the king at coming back and making adjustments to win football games. Another big thing for Bama is they're going to have to establish this run game, because establishing the run game with a Jam Miller who's coming back off an injury is going to help out Ty Simpson. Once you establish that run game, you truly open up the play action pass, the bootleg. You get Ty Simpson using his legs, which he's not the most athletic, but he can use his legs and can run. You get him out in free space, you make life easier on him. You get him out of the pocket. If the O-line's crashing, get him out of the pocket. How do you do that? Run the football. I think the big question, though, about running the football is, will Ryan Grubb actually do it? I'm a Seahawks fan, so I had to watch all of last year. Ryan Grubb got fired because he didn't run the football. He's had the same questions asked to him so far this season. Why don't you run the football? He's like a Madden player or college football player playing online. You just want to throw the football. He's like scared to run it, and I don't really get it. But he's going to have to run the football. When they do decide to pass, how do they attack Georgia's secondary? We watched their secondary last week get chopped into pieces by Chris Brazell, go for 200 yards. Do we see a Ryan Williams or a Jeremy Bernard do something very similar this week? I think we see Jeremy Bernard break out one of Ryan Williams, because I think they're going to target Ryan Williams and double cover him. I think Jeremy Bernard breaks out for over 150 receiving yards. For Georgia, you can't start slow again. Last year you started 28-0 deficit. Last 2 weeks against Tennessee, 21-7 deficit. You can't do that again. You're going to have to start out stronger. You don't have to start out winning the football game, but you can't get down by 3 scores or 2 scores. It's just not going to be good against a competitive, good football team like Bama is. Also, you have to win the line of scrimmage. This is something that you lost last week to Tennessee. You still pulled out the win, but against the Bama team, they're going to make you pay if you lose the line of scrimmage. They don't have those top-tier edge rushers like they usually do. They have a very balanced edge rush, and they will attack you if you lose that line of scrimmage and you get beat early. I also think for Georgia, key is, how do you use Zachariah Branch? We see Todd Monken a lot of times do these very simple screen passes or run a football to the edge. Are they going to continue to do these things, or are they going to try to involve Zachariah Branch in the actual quote-unquote passing game more and actually throw him the football down the field? Do they throw him on slants more? Do they throw him on underneath crossers? Or are we taking play actions, 50-yard deep shots down the field to Zachariah Branch? He's a good enough receiver that he is extremely good at every single one of those things in football. That's what makes him such a good weapon. I also think that a big key is for their offense, how does Gunnar Stockton use his legs? We watched him use his legs, and it made Tennessee pay in the end to lose the football game last week because Stockton was good enough with his legs. If he can do this again and use his legs and utilize them the way he does and use his arm, I think Georgia wins. I think some of my overall takes here are, which quarterback is going to use their legs more to win this football game, because that is a key, and whose D-line can win without getting extra pressure. Who can rush 4 and get home to the quarterback? Who can rush 4 and get those sacks and get those stops and force 3rd and long or get a stop on 3rd down? That's the key, because both these teams have good enough offenses for sure that if you only rush 4 and you don't get pressure, they will make you pay. And then if you don't get pressure and you start blitzing, now they have one-on-one coverage on the outside. That's when you cue up a little screen pass to Zachariah Branch. Boom, 60-yard rushing touchdown. Those are things that you can't allow to happen. You're going to have to get pressure with your interior 4 and make it happen. Also, which offensive line is going to fumble the game first? Who is going to break first and let that defensive line get the pressure? And if they do, does it get mentally in their head and they get too much pressure allowed and it becomes a serious problem? This is a game that I truly believe, we say it a lot in the SEC, won on the line of scrimmage. This one I think truly is. Which team can influence the quarterback to make bad decisions, make bad reads better? That's what I think is going to win this football game. Because of what I saw out of Georgia last week and their ability to be down and come back and win. See Kirby Smart make those in-game adjustments. Yes, he's 1-6 all time against Alabama. I don't care. This is the year. They don't have Nick Saban. Bama's look shaky. I think Georgia comes out and does it. I think Gunnar Stockton, I think this is his Heisman game right here. I think Gunnar Stockton's going to throw for over 300 yards. He's going to rush for 75-plus yards. And I think we get a 5-touchdown game out of Gunnar Stockton. 2 on the ground, 3 through the air. I think this is Gunnar Stockton's breakout Heisman campaign game. On the other side, I think Bama, they have a rough game. I don't think they lose heavily, but I think that they lean on the run game a lot, and they kind of get themselves behind. I don't think that they get the pass game going enough, and they shoot themselves in the foot. With that being said, I'm going to go with a final score of 31-27. Give me the Bulldogs. And for the last game of the day, we're going to talk about Oregon at Penn State. Oregon has a 2,690-mile trip from Eugene to Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. That is a far trip for a football team to make. With a young team going into Penn State, into Happy Valley, at a Penn State whiteout game with 100,000 plus fans, it is a tough environment for a young team. Dante Moore, redshirt freshman quarterback, with all of his receiving core being redshirt freshmen or redshirt sophomores. How do these players react to the tough environment? How are they going to be able to combat this environment? This is their first road game of the season. This is Dante Moore's first ever road game as a starting quarterback, and it is a tough one. How does he respond? I think some of the big things for Oregon here is, how do you make Aller play this game? Are you going to let Aller run the football? Is that what you want? Or are you going to try to make Aller use his arm and truly beat you? Because we don't know if he can. Against very inferior opponents so far this season, Penn State has looked very mid on offense. They have not been very efficient. They can't be efficient. They haven't been efficient on third downs. They get to third downs way too often. However, on the run game, Penn State is very good. I think this is a game that early on, Penn State is going to try to establish that very heavy run game. And if they can, I think it's going to be a very, very long day for Oregon, because Penn State can't truly establish that run game and then run for 400 yards if you need to. Last year in this game, these two teams played, they ran for over 350 rushing yards, and they still lost. Oregon has what it takes to still win this football game with allowing the rushing yards because of their offense. Dante Moore is a very good quarterback. For how young he is and how inexperienced he is, he's been very good. His deep ball is an extremely beautiful deep ball. I watched OSU get beat up by them, so I got to see a lot of his deep ball, and it was really pretty. If you can keep hitting these deep plays and these deep balls, they win this football game. I think this game ultimately comes down to which team is going to get those breakaway big plays. Whichever team can get the 50-yard touchdown pass, can get the 50-yard play, can get the really big first down or the really big 35-yard passing first down on a third down, is who's going to win this football game. Oregon has an offensive line that's been very good so far in pass pro. Against a Penn State defensive line who is hungry to sack that quarterback, they're wanting to get out there and feast. Can they continue that good pass pro? They're an inexperienced team. Penn State is a very experienced team. Which one ultimately comes through and wins? It's usually the experience. I'm going to trust in Penn State's defensive line to generate pressure and to get to Dante Moore. I would not be surprised if Dante Moore gets sacked at least 5 because of how good this Penn State defensive line is, especially in Dennis Sutton-Allen. He's a guy. He's going to be a top 20 pick in the draft. Oregon this year has been very, very keen to throwing these underneath passes. They're making life very easy on their quarterback, Dante Moore, and other than throwing the ball deep, they really like to throw the ball underneath and shallow. When they're playing a zone coverage team, and it is zone coverage against them, you can almost bet they're running some sort of mesh, some sort of shallow crossers, some sort of slant route. That's what they're doing. That is their identity right now. Against Penn State, who is a very zone coverage heavy team, are they going to attack that zone? They are. That's what they like to do. How does Penn State react? How do they change? Is Penn State going to run and bring their corners down and still play in zone? Or are they going to turn to man? If they turn to man, this is where Oregon's receiving core shows out, and they can go burn you and get and scorch you for 70-yard passing touchdowns. So that's where Oregon's offense can be very, very dynamic. For Penn State, this football game, their offense is simple. Run the football. You have 2 of the best running backs in the country. In my opinion, Notre Dame probably has the best running back room. Penn State probably has the second best running back room. With Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, you have 2 very good running backs who can easily both go for over 100 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Run the football. Because when you run the football against an Oregon defense, you're going to bring those safeties down to stop the run. That's when, guess what? You get that little naked boot action. You get that little boot play. And that's when you get the quarterback out of the pocket, Drew Aller, which is where he's his best, and you throw the football down the field then. I think the key here is make these passes easy for Drew Aller. Make it where the defense is making life easy on him. Make it where it's just a one read. Oh, he's open. Boom. Throw it. Don't make Drew Aller have to go out there and dissect 6 different reads and then find his check down. Go make life easy. And if they can run the football, that's making life easy on Drew Aller. Another thing is, everyone's talked about how very mid Penn State's offenses looked, and I'm on that boat. They have not looked good at all against 3 really inferior opponents. I think the big question, though, is has Kotelnicki showed his full offensive playbook? Has it just been a very vanilla playbook 3 weeks in the season to finally let it out now against Oregon? I think the answer is yes and no. We've seen Kotelnicki's offense the last 3 years. It hasn't really been that much of like firepower on the throwing the football game. It's been very lean on the run, pass when we have to, and pass when we feel comfortable. I think Oregon's going to try to make you pass when it's uncomfortable. The question is, can Kotelnicki and Drew Aller dime up plays that are uncomfortable to play and they work? That's the big thing. Which team is going to make the other team feel uncomfortable? Oregon has the defensive personnel and the best safeties in the league to be able to do it. Penn State has the best defensive line to be able to make Dante Moore feel uncomfortable. I think this is where it comes down to which quarterback gets more uncomfortable. And we've seen Drew Aller be that guy before. We've seen him get uncomfortable and lose football games. He stumbles on his feet. He does not have great footwork. Can James Franklin win the big one? When was the last time we saw him truly win the big one? He can't beat Ohio State. He can't beat Michigan. He's not winning these big football games that a guy at a program like Penn State, with the talent they have on this roster, should be winning. And it's disturbing. He has to win the big game. This is his first test this season to go win that big game. If he does, I think some people in the media who had Penn State as their championship contender are going to look really, really smart. But those same people who did pick them, if they lose this football game, are going to look really, really dumb. If Penn State can continue to run the football good and then create balance between the run game and the pass game, they're going to win handedly. I think they will. And you have to end your drives with touchdowns. Not this like puny little, oh, look, we just drove the ball down 75 yards in 9 minutes and then we kicked the field goal. Nope. You're going to have to score touchdowns against an Oregon offense that is a very good offense. Dan Lanning has that offense rolling. You have to end with touchdowns because Dan Lanning is not going to end with field goals. He's going to end with touchdowns. I think if Penn State can establish the run game and can use it to open up the pass game, they win this football game handily. I think by 14-plus points. My problem is I don't think they can do it. I don't have trust in them to be able to do all of that. But you know what I do have trust in? That defensive line. That defensive line is what I trust in this football game. More than Oregon's offensive line and more than Oregon's freshman quarterback, I trust the Penn State defense and the Penn State front seven to win this football game. Because of that, I think we're going to get gritty. I think we're going to get a very close game. I think it comes down to a game-winning field goal by, drum roll, I'm going to go with Penn State. I think Penn State is going to be able to pull it out. I think it comes down to a last-minute field goal. Penn State wins 31-30. Give me the Nittany Lions. With all those games being wrapped up and my predictions being said, thank y'all for tuning back into the channel for another video. Make sure to check back in later this week to find all of my Week 5 reviews and talking about all the games we watched this last weekend. If you like the content, make sure to hit the subscription button. Make sure to hit the noti bell to be notified when all my new videos drop. Thank y'all for watching. Boomer.